Yeah, so my name is Billy Horn. I'm here to talk to you about the data validation Slacker tool that I made with Python. First, I'll introduce myself. I'm Billy Horn. I've been coming here to San Diego Python meetup for about off and on for about 3 or 4 years. And most of you probably don't know me because I don't really speak up or anything. And embarrassingly enough, this is my first talk here, but I'm really excited. Even though I haven't talked here, I very much appreciate this community and appreciate giving me the platform to share this project with you guys. Um, right now, what I do is data engineering for an ed tech company called Keras. So I ingest a lot of disparate data sources and combine them and put them together for our analysts and reporting across the company. Before that, I got my start with Tangible AI with Hobson and Maria. There, I worked for a few months doing machine learning engineering. It's good to see you again, Hobson. Hope everything is going well. Yeah, so let's dive right in. First of all, this is a tool that I built. It's a data validation tool to send Slack alerts. So that's the Slacker part of it. So what we'll talk about, first of all, what is this thing and why data validation? And then I'll give you guys a little bit of a demo. I think it's important to show you the environment that I work in. So this diagram doesn't do a good job of conveying that, but really, this is me right here, the data engineer. And I go into our data warehouse where all of our different data lives, and I combine these into a robust data model. Like it gets pretty complicated sorting through this data. A lot of weird, tricky things happen. And then I deliver these reports to, well, these tables to analysts and stuff to make reports, and data scientists, marketing, all kinds of departments across the company. And this even uglier diagram is the tool. So I have this data warehouse here where I'm building these tables and views, and I build Python automations through Airflow, an orchestration tool, to maintain these tools automatically on a daily basis, sometimes more than daily. And then I also use Python to run automations on these. And if those validations fail, then it sends me a Slack alert so that I know what's going on. Because when I've only been doing this for about 6 months now, since February, maybe 8 months. And when I started, I was getting bombarded with all these business requests, like what's going on with this data? This is wrong. What's going on here? And so I wanted to get out ahead of this and be proactive so I can know about the issues before the company knew about them. And that's what spawned this tool. I built this tool to help me out. And this is just a brief example of maybe like why you would need data validation. This is a very contrived example. It's very simple, but honestly, this is based in reality. Like I had this happen to me at my job. So first of all, this is final grades for different students, right? So you have student with ID 1, their email is null. And for the business, their constraints are we can't have a null email. We give an email to everyone. So that's an issue right there. This other one, we have this learner, number 2, who's in music theory course, and they have 2 different final grades. That doesn't make sense either. That's a duplication error. We shouldn't have 2 final grades for a single student. It sounds weird, but that actually did happen to me. So that's kind of why I put it in here. So let me dive into the demo. I changed screens. Can you see my dbeaver right now? Okay, cool. So for my demo, I kind of set up this example that I work at a DVD rental store, if those even exist anymore. But I downloaded this DVD rental database I think is widely used for SQL practice. And I'm building a report for commissions, which is very serious. You don't want to mess up commissions because you don't want to pay somebody extra money and then have to ask for it back. You can't really do that. And then you don't want to underpay somebody and have them never know about it. And 2 years later, you're like, whoops, I underpaid this person. So it's very important. So I run this data model or this report once a month, right? And I built this very contrived query to kind of create a duplicate here. But if you see, for store ID, we only have 1 manager working at 1 store. That's the business constraint. We actually only have ever 1 manager, never 2 managers. And here in my report, I have Mike and Billy Jones both working at store number 1. And so their commission is both $3,300. So, if nobody looks at this report, notices anything, they're going to pay them $3,300, but it's not right, because what happened was Billy Jones should actually work at store ID number 11. but it was input incorrectly into the HR system and nobody knew about it until, we're paying commissions, right? So this is kind of the contrived example of what I'm about to show you, what my tool accomplishes. So digging into the code, first I built this pseudocode script just to give a brief overview of really what's needed. I would say I've only been programming Python for like 2 years. I feel very inexperienced, like I know very little. I was really surprised to find out how easy it was to send a Slack message through Python. All I really needed to do was import requests, pandas for the data validation, and I call it Psycho PG2. I don't really know what it's called, but it's so I can interact and connect with a Postgres database. And then I get my configurations. I connect to the Postgres database. This one I have set up on a DigitalOcean server with that DVD rental database that I mentioned earlier. Then I get the data into a data frame, run my data validations on that data frame, and this is the code to send the Slack message. And really, all I really need is this one line. It's a request with a Slack URL. You have to go get a webhook from them, and they get a webhook URL that you ping, and then you pass them a payload, which is a JSON in JSON format. Can you guys see the text? Okay, should I make it larger? Okay. So just real quick, I'm sending this to me, and over here on the side, this is my Slack that I'm sending it to. So you should see a message pop up if all goes well. So testing validation, all is good. That's great. So I have the basic bare bones set up for this. If I run this whole thing, I'll just run this whole bit that actually connects to the Postgres database and does the validation, and the validation failed. This is great. This is what got me started. I tested out. I built this in a couple hours. I'm like, this is awesome. I can really use this. So it can get more robust. So what I did is I broke this out, and I have a class here, which is a Postgres class. And this is made for my connection. So when I instantiate this class, I pass the credentials and it automatically connects and has an open connection. And then from there, I can run different queries and get data to different data frames if I'd like. And then I built another class, which is the data validator class. This should technically, I think, be broken up into two different classes, because this kind of combines the Slack message. It builds the Slack message for me, but also runs the logic for the data validation. So that's kind of what this is. And with Slack, I don't know if you guys have messed with that API, but they do have like a builder kit, like a playground online that you can go in and just build your Slack message, and it gives you the payload that you can copy and paste. So you can basically build some pretty quick MVPs of what you want your message to look like, and then implement it in your code. And so that's pretty much my data validator class and my Postgres class. And then I have a script here that combines those and actually runs my data validation. So this is what I call commissions QA, where I instantiate the Postgres class. And then I use this break. I forgot what it's called. I think it was Jeremy went over these in this is how I learned it. And my coworker also taught me a little bit of this, but this with statement is here. So basically it opens up that connection. And then whenever you're done with that with block, it closes the connection for you. So that's what it does on the exit of the with block. Sorry, I don't remember what they're called right now. And it runs different data validations. So I have one that's check duplicates, and you pass a column, and then check nulls. So earlier I told you, like, if a null value shows up, that might be a bad thing. So I'm going to check that as well. I'll just run this script real quick, and I should get a message. This is what my message looks like from the data validator. It says data validation failed, commissions, but it prints out all of the data validations that you performed. So this duplications check, it found one duplicate in the store ID column, and that failed. And then there's a nulls check, which it passed. There were no nulls found. Oops. And what I did is at work, we work in Snowflake. And so I built these buttons to go to a link. So you could, when you click that link, it goes to Snowflake. So you automatically get that query, you can run it and start diving into the issue right away. Here, I couldn't quickly figure out how to do that with Postgres. I don't know if you can interact with Postgres through like a web interface, but if any of you guys, if any of you people know, let me know, that would be great. But basically you can click this and it would open up your query so you could start diving into the problem right away. And the idea is that this data validation, you put it, so what we do, I work with Airflow a lot, which is an orchestration tool. It basically just triggers scripts at a certain time on a routine basis, and that maintains our tables. So what I do is I trigger a script to build the table, then I run a validation on that table, and if everything's good, if it passes, then it dumps that table into our warehouse. If it fails, then it comes back, and then I have to figure it out, basically, and figure out what happened. So that's just one way that I'm using to do data monitoring. We're not a very mature data company. We move very fast, so we're building things quickly, and we don't really have a lot of data validation or data monitoring in place. This is basically the extent of what we have right now. So I just thought I'd show that to you. Hopefully it sparks some ideas, or if you guys think it's cool, or if it's not cool, let me know. If there's something better out there, I would really like to know. Actually, sorry, real quick, I did make a list of other open source Python-based data validation packages. So Great Expectations is one. It uses data assertions to do it, like you're testing, like when you do assertions through testing. It has statistical analysis and data profiling. It's really robust, which is why I didn't use it. I don't have the time to figure it out yet. And then there's also one called Soda SQL. I think now it's called Soda Core, but it's an open source project for data validation using Python as well. But that is it. That's the data validation Slacker tool.
That is super cool.
Thank you. Do you want to take a quick question if anybody has a question? The only question I saw was around the credentials. It looked like you were let's see. It looked like you were just importing credentials or something, but I'm sure that's just test data.
Yes, well, yes and no. Like, I don't really know how to hide secrets in my code, so I was researching that. I use config parser to do that. I have it in a config file, and is that how you do it? I'm not really sure. I know .env is used too, but I used config parser to do that.
Those are both industry standard ways of doing it. The main thing is to make sure that you always name that file with some keyword that you always include in git ignore, and always include in all your other scripts to check for security leaks.
Yeah, I was worried, even though I'm using this, it hides it in the code, but when this error message, when it throws the error, it sends my Slack URL. So if anybody gets that URL, I'm sure they could bombard me with Slack messages.
Oh, they definitely could.
Yeah, so I don't know how to hide it. I didn't know how to hide it in the printout. So I don't know. I'm gonna get rid of it after this.
Good idea.
I'm gonna get rid of that URL after this presentation.
There's a way. Oh, go ahead.
I was just wondering about your use of pandas and Postgres, the PsychoPG and Postgres, and I'm sorry, pandas. How did you convert your SQL query results into a data frame?
So what I did there is I used the cursor and fetched all into this data. I think it comes back as a tuple, and then from there I had to, but the tuple doesn't have any columns assigned to it, so I had to go back to the cursor to get the columns. And then I used just PD data frame columns equals the columns that I got from the cursor description. Oh, cool. And then data, which is the tuple that I got from the fetch all.
Oh, awesome.
I was just going to mention, on the security standpoint, there's a way that you can change a Slack notification. So it requires an auth token. So that way, if somebody were to, find your URL through web scraping, they just can't send 1,000 Slack messages. And something else you might want to look into for secrets is if your company is using HashiCorp Vault or is using Secrets Manager, it's a little bit of DevOps work to set them up where you can use your own. I use AWS Secrets Manager, but Google Cloud, Azure all have Secrets Manager, and you pay like fractions of a penny per request. So if you run it like 100 times, you're paying like 2 or 3 cents. So, I mean, there is some money, but you have to have programmatic access in order to access the secret.
Yeah, that would be great actually, because we don't have a great sharing utility for sharing that across our team yet. So I think our other team uses Azure.
Another common
Vault.
secrets manager or password manager is Bitwarden, and we often use it for holding credentials and sharing them across people. And it's free and it's open source, and it's the only password manager that has never been hacked.
Can you access that through the terminal, like through a CLI tool, or is it only through the web?
Oh no, yeah. So you'd still have you can store files in it. So like typically we put our .env file into Bitwarden if we want to share it with multiple people, or you can share it in some other file share that's encrypted. But yeah, so and when it comes to sharing credentials for all your servers, like Keegan was mentioned for Terraform, the HashiCorp one, or if you're using AWS, you use their key store. If you're using Google's, use theirs. Instead of having it depend on, be tightly integrated with somebody else's tool or cloud structure, you probably want to use something like .env files that's used by everybody on all repositories in all possible environments. So I like your approach, using config files or .env files for storing it. You just make sure you're all of your, we get ignore all of our .env files. And that's one way to easily be sure that nothing that could possibly be used to hack you is ever revealed.
Nice.